Welcome back to Checkmate with Blake. In this video, we're going to be talking about the most powerful piece in all of chess, the queen. I'm going to be giving you guys 5 key rules or 5 principles that you must understand about the queen to win more games and improve your elo. The idea behind this video is when you look at a position like this, there's a lot of moves that you may consider. However, hopefully by the end of this video, you will understand the best move because you will know where the queen is best placed and how to use the queen. Therefore, you'll know that the best move in this position is actually with a queen. This position that I have up here is actually position 4 out of 5 that we're going to cover. So stick through the video. This will be position 4 and lesson 4 on how to use the queen. Some of these ideas you may understand if you're advanced in chess or intermediate level. However, hopefully this will be a reminder for some of these lessons. However, if you're also newer to chess, this will teach you a lot about the queen and where its strengths and its weaknesses are. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button. It really does help the channel grow a lot. And this is part of a series. I actually have one on the knight, one on the bishop, and I will be making, I think, one on the pawns and one on the king as well. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments. It will kind of teach me about what content you want to see. But we'll go ahead and get right into this video. As I said, this is lesson 4, so we're not going to start with this lesson. We'll actually start here. This is lesson number 1. And the lesson on this one that I want to talk about is that queens are excellent forking pieces. And that might seem obvious to you because obviously in this position, especially if you're an advanced player, you may immediately see this fork with the king and the rook here. However, what I'm trying to point out here is how the queen's unique attacking ability, its versatile attacking ability rather, allows you to have many forking opportunities, particularly with the king and another piece. So in this position, the obvious move is just to play d5, pick up this rook because you're forking the pieces so they cannot defend it, and then you take this pawn and you're winning. Now I took this a step further and I want to show you guys more about this queen's powerful attack. So I pulled up another example here. This is the same exact position, however now they have a bishop rather than a rook. And obviously here's where I want to illustrate the second point of how they're so excellent forking pieces. Because in this position, obviously you don't have this check, but now you have this check where you're going to pick up the bishop and win in a similar fashion. What I'm trying to illustrate here is, as you notice, the queen can attack on these diagonals, but also can attack on these horizontal files as well. So the queen can attack and fork many pieces, whereas, if you're using that rook or using the bishop, it can only fork along, for example, the bishop can only fork on these diagonals and the rook can only attack along the files. So that's just the first simple lesson. Just stick with me if that was too simple for you. Lesson number 2 is that queens work great with pawns for checkmating attacks. Pawns are often described as some of the weaker pieces in chess. Obviously, they're only worth 1 point of material. However, in this position, this pawn is worth more than this rook. If you don't believe me, it's because this pawn will allow us to win the game by simply moving the queen over here to work with the pawn for a nice quick checkmate attack on g7. This third lesson is that pawns pair great with bishops for creating attacks. So in this position, obviously we see that the bishops are looking down this file or looking down these diagonals, looking towards the king. However, this queen, because it is paired well with these bishops, because particularly this bishop is pinning this pawn to the king, notice immediately we have this attack where you're actually it's actually checkmate in 1 because the king can't move here because this other bishop. Similarly to position number 1, I've also kind of created another example where if the queen, as you can see, in the similar position, but now let's say the queen is here, this further illustrates how strong that the queen is with the bishop. Because notice now, with the queen in front of the bishop, we're able to threaten checkmate in 1 here and checkmate in 1 here, and they still cannot push to block because this bishop pins this pawn. So I just want you to remember that in your games. Try to put the queen with the bishops when you're creating these attacks. Now here we are in lesson 4. We started the video out and I asked you guys what's the move you would play. And the reason this is so complicated is because obviously you have a great attack on the king side. However, black also has an attack here on a1 and potentially here on a2. So if you were to move the queen somewhere else to, to preserve your queen here, they would actually checkmate you right here. So the fourth lesson is that queens are great at controlling the board because they can attack and defend the board simultaneously. So you want to maintain this attack here where your rook is looking this way. You're kind of preventing their bishop from moving because if their bishop moves, they would be checkmated. So in order to continue the attack and defend the position simultaneously, the move should be obvious. The move should just be queen goes back to b2. Now, if this move is confusing, again, it's because we're trying to attack and defend simultaneously. Another rule you may have heard about queens is that they're great supporting pieces. This kind of follows the same principles of this position because the queen is supporting this attack on g7, but also defending the board as well. And the last lesson kind of is a is a bunch of the lessons combined into one. But it's actually the lesson in this one is that queens dominate the endgame. If you ask me, or anyone who's advanced in chess, who would you rather have, the queen or the rook in these two pawns? Although these pawns look intimidating and look like, they can push up the board and make a queen, so maybe some people would say they'd rather play black here. You want to play white because white has tactics, because the queen dominates the endgame. So the tactics here, if you're not seeing it at first, is you give this check. Notice now once we force the king to move, you can give another check. Now, similar to the first lesson that we had where queens are excellent forking pieces, we've actually forked the king and the rook here. So we'll pick up this rook, and now, of course, we would win this pawn and this one, and, of course, win this endgame. So if you guys found this video pretty helpful, please let me know in the comments, and I can make more videos specifically on how to use the king and how to use the pawns as well. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel. It really does help the channel grow a lot. Thank you guys so much for your support. And if you want to see a specific opening or specific content, please let me know in the comments as well, and I can do that as well. Thank you guys so much.